The heavens declare the glory of God.
The skies proclaim the works of God's hands.
May our faces shine and reflect God's love.
May our acts reach the good news.
Let our words and thoughts be pleasing to God.
Let us worship the Holy One, who is our strength and Savior. Amen.
Our first hymn, page 3 in your hymnal. Holy, 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 Lord God Almighty.
God our Creator, we confess that we are
Our first reading this morning is Psalm 19, which can be found in your Pew Bible on page 473. Psalm 19. The heavens are telling the glory of God, and the firmament proclaims his handiwork. Day to day pours forth speech, and night to night declares knowledge. There is no speech, nor are there words. Their voice is not heard. Yet their voice goes out through all the earth, and their words to the end of the world. In the heaven he has sent a tent for the sun, which comes out like a bridegroom from his wedding canopy, and like a strong man runs its course with joy. Its rising is from the end of the heavens, and its circuit to the end of them, and nothing is hid from its heat. The law of the Lord is perfect, reviving the soul. The decrees of the Lord are sure, making wise the simple. The precepts of the Lord are right, rejoicing the heart. The commandment of the Lord is clear, enlightening the eyes. The fear of the Lord is pure, enduring forever. The ordinance of the Lord are true and righteous altogether. More to be desired are they than gold, even much fine gold, sweeter also than honey and drippings of the honeycomb. Moreover, by them is your servant warned, in keeping them there is great reward. But who can detect the errors, clearly from hidden faults? Keep back your servant also from the insolent. Do not let them have dominion over me. Then I shall be blameless and innocent of great transgressions. Let the words of my mouth and the meditation of my heart be acceptable to you, O Lord, my rock and my redeemer. Our second reading is from 1 Corinthians chapter 12, verses 12 through 31, and they can be found on page 999 in your pew. For just as the body is one and has many members, and all the members of the body, though many, are one body, so it is with Christ. For in the one Spirit we were all baptized into one body, Jews or Greeks, slaves or free, and we were all made to drink of one Spirit. Indeed, the body does not consist of one member, but of many. If the foot would say, because I am not a hand, I do not belong to the body, that would not make it any less part of the body. And if the ear would say, because I am not an eye, I do not belong to the body, that would not make it any less a part of the body. If the whole body were an eye, where would the hearing be? If the whole body were hearing, where would the sense of smell be? But as it is, God arranged the members of the body, each one of them as he chose. If all were a single member, where would the body be? As it is, there are many members, yet one body. The eye cannot say to the hand, I have no need of you, nor again the head to the feet, I have no need of you. On the contrary, the members of the body that seem to be weaker are indispensable. And those members of the body that we think less honorable, we clothe with greater honor, and our less respectable members are treated with greater respect, whereas our more respectable members do not need this. But God has so arranged the body, given the greater honor to the inferior member, that there may be no dissension within the body, but the members may have the same care for one another. If one member suffers, all suffer together with it. If one member is honored, all rejoice together with it. Now you are the body of Christ and individually members of it. And God has appointed in the church first apostles, second prophets, third teachers, then deeds of power, then gifts of healing, forms of assistance, forms of leadership, various kinds of tongues. All are apostles, all are prophets, all are teachers. Do all work miracles? Do all possess gifts of healing? Do all speak in tongues? Do all interpret? But strive for the greater gifts, and I will show you a still more excellent view. This is the word of God. And now it's time for children.
I was going to talk about Winter Jam, because Winter Jam is really exciting, and it's so diverse. When they started out with some guys, Tabashi, I know you guys probably don't know who Tabashi is. I do, because I have Chad living at my house. Tabashi is a rapper, and he sang one of the Craze song, Church Clothes. I don't know if you've all ever heard that song, but it's really not a bad song if you can keep up with the words. My brain doesn't move that fast on a normal day anymore, but anyway. So they started out, he sang some of the Craze songs that would, and the one I know was Church Clothes, but Crowder was there. I don't know how many of you guys know Crowder. I like Crowder a lot. Crowder can get pretty bluegrassy, actually, and he ended his performance with a very bluegrassy version of I'll Fly Away. So I thought that was really pretty cool that we went from Church Clothes to I'll Fly Away all in the same night. So anyway, and that concert is huge. It was standing only at the Scott Trade Center, so you can imagine how many screaming teenagers there were there. Right, Sarah? But it was a blast. And it makes me think about, they told us they were in Iowa yesterday, the night before, and they're actually in Kansas City tonight, and they just move and move and move across the United States with this huge Christian movement. It's really a great experience. If you can survive the pushing and shoving and screaming of teenagers, it's a great experience to go, right, Marcia? So, anyway, it takes lots and lots of people to pull that off. Lots of people with special talents. The bands have great talent, but there's lots of people behind the scenes who's changing out those scenes constantly. There's people running the business aspect of that, and it just takes tons, I can imagine thousands of people to pull off Winter Jam every year. And they tell us, they work all year on it, and I'm sure they do. And, the Bible verse today talks about a foot thinking it's not part of the body because it's not a hand, or your ear not being a part of the body because it's not an eye. But, I don't know about you guys. Have you ever guys heard anything? I broke my arm several years ago, my dominant arm, and I don't want to be without it. And every once in a while, like right now, it's acting up. I don't like that. I broke my ankle this summer. I don't like, believe me, you don't want to be without a foot because that's awful. So it takes all kinds of things to work together to become one. And we're having a chili dinner downstairs today. And I was downstairs in the kitchen earlier, and it's not one person who puts that chili dinner together. It takes lots and lots of people. So God places us just where we need to be with our special talents to pull off those kind of things. And He's given each one of you a special talent. So when He calls you to use it, okay? Let's say a prayer. Dear God, thank you for making us so individually, but making us a part of your plan. In Jesus' name, amen.
What I used to think of, because I heard it in my youth, God doesn't desire us to be Lone Ranger Christians. Lone Ranger Christians. Now, some of you may not know the Lone Ranger. I don't know. But most of us in here know who the Lone Ranger is. He was started out, he's one of the first TV shows I ever remember watching, was the Lone Ranger. And it was in black and white. But it wouldn't have mattered if it was in black and white, because that's all we had was a black and white TV set. So it was a black and white TV show, and it's an old Western show about this guy who was called the Lone Ranger. That's all. You didn't know his name or anything else. He was the Lone Ranger, and he wore a white hat, so he was a good guy. He was a good guy. And he rode around on his horse, Hi-Ho Silver, his horse, with him. And he was a ranger because he wore a badge. But I don't know what kind of ranger he was. But all I do know, he was the only one. He was the Lone Ranger. He was by himself. There was never any other Rangers there. I mean, he wasn't like Texas Rangers where there's all kinds of them all over the place. He was the only one. He was the Lone Ranger. So back in the late 60s, early 70s, when I was growing up in the church, I heard this term a lot about Lone Ranger Christians because there were so many people in the 60s coming out and coming out of that movement that went on in the 60s, which some of us may have been a part of or maybe not, who really believed we could do things ourselves, who really believed in the individual. And there were so many people in the late 60s and early 70s who were saying, I don't need a church. I don't need all the trappings of religion. I can do this by myself. I can do religion myself. Religion is a personal thing between me and my God. I don't have to go to church. And those of us who were going to church at that time, at least in the church I was in, we called those people Lone Ranger Christians. Lone Rangers. They thought they could do it all by themselves. But for those of you that know the Lone Ranger, if you ever watched an episode of the Lone Ranger, he never did it by himself. He would have never been able to save people if it wasn't for Tonto. Tonto always came to his rescue just at the right time. And you think, oh my gosh, they've got him surrounded. They got him tied up. He'll never get away. Well, here comes Tonto and saves him. Or Silver would save him. His horse was so smart he could untie his ropes if they were tied by his hand. Lone Ranger was not alone. He had to have someone else. He had to have someone to help. Even in saving all those people, it took Tonto. So the Lone Ranger Christian was sort of a misnomer, but that's what we call people that didn't think they needed the church. But we do need the church. We do need community. Sadly, there are so many people today in the 21st century that think, no, we don't need the church. The church is not necessary, either because I don't believe in God or I don't want to have any access to God, or they think, as our Lone Ranger Christians used to think, that I can do it myself. I don't need the church. I can commune with God on my own. So many people treat the church as being unnecessary today. And it shouldn't be that way, because we do need the church. All of us need the church. And more than that, we need to be the church. All of us, we need to be the church. That's why you're here this morning. You're here because you are being the church. Of course, this requires a correct understanding of what the church is. The church is not this building that we're sitting in. A church is not a club. A church is not a business. We don't really come to church. We are the church. We are the church. The church is not like a country club with perks and privileges. We don't join a church to receive things like power or position or spiritual gifts. We join a church to honor God and to serve God with others and to minister to each other. So a church really, it's not a business. This isn't like Burger King where they can have it their own way. And that's an old slogan. Some of you may not even recognize that. But we don't come here to have it our own way. We are God's church and we try to do it God's way. So your question to be thinking about this morning is, why are you here? You're here to be the church. Well, how do we do that? How do we become or be the church? Shall we pray? Gracious God, may the words of my lips and the meditations of our hearts and minds be acceptable in thy sight, O Lord, our rock and our Redeemer. Amen. Had you already heard that this morning?
Yes.
Did you hear those words this morning? Did you hear John read the end of Psalm 19? Psalm 19, verse 14, let the words of my mouth and the meditation of my heart be acceptable in thy sight, O Lord, my rock and my Redeemer. We hear that about every Sunday. We heard it twice today. That's where I picked that up at one time. I think it's a very fitting prayer as we begin any main message. So what is a church? Here we are. I said you are the church. What is a church? Well, a church is a living organism, as explained by Paul in this chapter 12 of 1 Corinthians. He says it's a living organism. And if you think about a living organism can be healthy, or it can be sick, and it can even die. As a matter of fact, most all living organisms do die. Hundreds of churches close their doors every year in this country. Hundreds of churches close their doors. So Paul used language in this passage to describe a living church, and he basically said three things. He said a church is one body with many members. He said that all the members of the church are necessary, and he said members care for and should share with each other. It says in the first scripture, the first line that we heard from chapter 12 today, for just as the body, the church, the body is one and has many members, and all the members of the body, though many, are one body, so it is with Christ. And then he goes on and gives us some examples of that. I think it's a pretty fitting description of what a church is. There are a few things that are similar between a church and our own bodies, if you want to think about it. We each have one body. Thinking about our physical body, we don't have two or three, but we only have this one. So that means we better take care of it. It's the only one we get. So we need to take care of our body, whatever that means. The same is true for the church. This body of the church that we're a part of, it's the one that we have. And we need to care for it. We need to do those things that make the body of the church healthy. Secondly, our physical bodies, though they are one, they have various members. And we know that, and Paul mentioned some of them in there. The eyes, the ears, the arms, the legs, the hands. They all make up the same body. And about this time last year I talked about the big toe. Some of you remember that. Some of you even identified with being the big toe as a part of the church. But the point is, all the members, all the different parts of the body are important. Without all the members of our body, we would have problems. We would have issues. As we heard Joan talking about when she had a broken arm or when she had a broken ankle. She still had those parts, but they weren't working right. So you have issues, and you have to accommodate, and you have to make up for things. The same is true for the church. Without all the people here, without all the parts of the church, it wouldn't be the true body that we want it to be, that Paul talks about here. All the members of our bodies are joined together in unity. Right? They work together. The arm doesn't just do stuff on its own. Just flop around. Hopefully the legs don't do that either. Because if they started doing that, and it'd be pretty hard for me up here, to try to give any kind of message at all, and it just wouldn't work out. We hope that the body works together in unity. And if it doesn't work that way, we have some serious problems. And we can't accomplish what we want to accomplish. It'd just be one big mess. And the church is the same way. There is one church. It has many different parts to it, but we're all joined together in unity. I think the main thing that Paul was saying in this particular passage in 1 Corinthians 12 is that there needs to be unity in a church body. Though there are many members and each one is a unique individual, there's still only one church. Just as he said, there are many gifts, but there's one Spirit. There are many members, but there's one church. Unfortunately, that is not always seen in the church. Unfortunately, that's not always the way that it goes. Something happens and somebody in the church gets their feelings hurt. That happens. Sometimes things don't go exactly the way somebody wants. And they get upset. Somebody doesn't like what's happening with the silversmith's house. Somebody doesn't like what's going on with the process of calling someone, hopefully me, as a minister, to this particular church. Maybe the music is not the way somebody likes it. Or maybe, even though Amy said she was here to hear what I had to say, maybe I don't preach like Paul Cable or Trish Monday. And so, I don't need to do that. I don't need to be there. What we're really saying when those things hit us like that is, if you don't do it my way, I'm leaving. I'm going to be gone for a while. I'm not going to stick around. Then others in the church just say, well, let them go. Maybe they'll come back in a few years or whatever. Maybe we get a different preacher, or maybe something else can happen. Just let them go. We don't need them right now. Folks, the call to unity in a church, the call that Paul is calling us to here, the call that God offers us through Jesus Christ, rests on each one of us. We need to be working out our issues together. We need to be pursuing unity in the body of Christ. So I challenge you this day to ask yourself, what can I do as a part of this church to help bring unity to this church? What can I do? There are things that you could do. Is there somebody that you need to reach out to? Is there somebody that you sort of avoided, that you haven't been talking to, that you haven't had much to do with recently in the church for whatever reason? It's up to you to ensure that there's unity in the church. Be one in the body. Be the church. That's what we're challenged to do here this morning in this passage. The human body is truly a wonderful work of creation. All the various members of our body working together is simply amazing if you think about it. So if all the members of this church work together, it will be simply amazing if you think about it. We need every member of the church to function and to have a place, a role, a part of our church, to be a healthy church body. If someone's missing or someone's gone AWOL for whatever reason, the whole body suffers. All members of the church are necessary to the body. Just because you don't stand behind a pulpit or stand up here behind a lectern like John did this morning, just because you don't have some official position in the church, just because you maybe don't sing in the choir or don't play in the cheerful chimers or hand chimes that we'll hear from a little later on today. Maybe you don't work with the youth and go to winter jam. Maybe you don't help with vacation Bible school in the summertime. Maybe you don't help prepare communion. Maybe you're not a deacon that lights the candles and makes sure everything's going. Maybe you're not an elder on the session that meets all the time. Does not mean that you're not necessary. You are necessary to this body. All members are part of the same body. And all of us are necessary for this body to function. Earlier in chapter 12, I talked about this last Sunday. Paul wrote that each of us is given the manifestation of the Spirit for the common good. Each member, every one of us, is given the same Spirit for the common good of the whole church. And so I asked you the question last week, have you found what your gift is and are you using it here in the church? Have you unwrapped your gift? Or did you take your gift and just set it up on that shelf and close those doors to the closet without even realizing what your gift is? I'll go back to my old days as a coach and use the analogy that a church is a team sport. It takes all of us working together. And you may think you're the very last person that sits on the very end of the bench, and you don't have much to do with what's going on with all the action and the excitement. But without you sitting there on the end of the bench, let me tell you, the team would not be able to function in the way that it functions. We need every person. We need you there for that practice behind the scenes to encourage the other people to do whatever it is that you can do. to help this team, this church, function to the best of its abilities. And I know there are those in the church who think because they don't have the same role as somebody else, or they don't do as much as other people do, that they are not needed. Well, that's not true. To use Paul's analogy, the foot is just as much a part of the body as the hand. We need the feet, the hands, the eyes, and even the big toe. You may just think you're the big toe, but you're an important part of the church. This church needs you. We need everyone working together to be a healthy church. So we're all members of the same body, and each of us is important and necessary for the body to function well. And we're also supposed to care for each other and to share with each other in our pain and in our joy. That's true from our physical bodies as well. You know, when relief comes to one part of your body, when I was hammering another day and hit my thumb, you know what really hurt was this thumb right here. But after I got some ice on it, got it settled down, and the throbbing started going down, it wasn't just my thumb that felt better. It was my entire body. I felt so much better when that pain in that one little part of my body was going away. So we are to care for and we're to share with each other. Unity. Unity in the church. God composed the church as God desired, so that there wouldn't be division within the body. More than that, God has done this so everyone would have the same care for each other. As members of the same church, we should be caring and sharing with each other. We need to share each other's pain as well as each other's joy. When another member suffers, we should suffer with them. Just as when one part of our physical body is in pain, our entire body is suffering. When somebody in the church is suffering, you should, as a fellow member of this church, reach out and do what you can to care for them. You might ask them if there's anything you can do for them. You might ask them if there's any way that you can pray for them specifically. We need to be there and support and care for each other. Likewise, when another member of a church is honored, we should all rejoice. When something good happens to another, congratulate them, share their joy. What benefits one benefits us all as a whole church. You know, I think we're pretty good at doing this. This church is pretty good at doing that, but there's always room for improvement. There's always room to improve. So going back to my original question, why are you here? Well, we heard a lot of different responses to that as terms of why are people here. Are you here to be a part of the body of Christ? Are you here to be the church? Are you here to glorify God? How well do you represent God? How well do you represent the church? How well do we display the unity described in this passage from 1 Corinthians 12? You know, as I'm looking at weddings and thinking different things about weddings, recently, it's only been in recent years that I've come across this. Some of you may have seen it for many, many years. But there's a little saying that sometimes is displayed at the back of a church or wherever a wedding's being held. Sometimes it's written in the program for the wedding. And it says something like, pick a seat, not a side, because we are all family here. Well, that's the way it should be in church. We don't have sides on any issue. We are all family here. There are no sides in the church. There's just God's side. We ought not to ask whether someone's on our side or not in any issue the church confronts. We need to be asking, are we on God's side? We are all members of Christ's body. We are all part of God's family. So we're all one big family. And you know, there are a lot of us that we come to church once a week. We come here every Sunday and we spend an hour, or maybe you go to Sunday school, or maybe you spend 2 hours. And today, if you stay for the chili luncheon in the program, maybe you're going to spend 3 hours here. 1, 2, or 3 hours. If you did that with your spouse, with your husband, with your children, with your nuclear family members, only spent 1, 2, or 3 hours a week with them, how close would your family be? You know, the English poet John Donne once wrote, "No man is an island." Now, regardless of what he meant when he wrote that particular statement, it says that we are not alone. Remember, the Lone Ranger even had Tonto. So, we are not alone. We don't make it alone in this world. No member of a church is an island. We're joined together in Jesus Christ as Jesus' body. So we need each other. You know, many of us here talked to me and said, we want this church to grow. But what kind of church are we trying to grow here? You know, I don't think we're called to be successful. I think we're called to love and to serve each other in this church body. So maybe we should focus less on how to grow the church and focus more on how to be the church. Are we cultivating the fruit of the Spirit? Is there joy in serving the Lord no matter what the circumstance is? Are we loving? Are we caring for? Are we serving one another now? Because if we're not, then why would other people want to be a part of this body, of this church? Be the church. Be the body of Christ. Why are you here? You are here because you are being the church this morning. So continue to be the church. Thanks be to God. Amen. Let's now respond to this word this morning by rising either in body or in spirit and singing together our hymn of response, which is number 401, and it is the church's one foundation. Let us rise and sing together. the church. You are here because you are the church. Of course, one of the great affirmations of the church that tells us what we believe and who we are is the Apostles' Creed. So repeat with me now the Apostles' Creed, which you find printed in your bulletin this morning. I believe in God, the Father Almighty, maker of heaven and earth, and in Jesus Christ, his only Son, our Lord, who was conceived by the Holy Ghost, born of the Virgin Mary, suffered under Pontius Pilate, was crucified, dead, and buried. He descended into hell. The third day he rose again from the dead. He ascended into heaven, and sitteth on the right hand of God the Father Almighty. From thence he shall come to judge the quick and the dead. I believe in the Holy Ghost, the Holy Catholic Church, the communion of saints, the forgiveness of sins, the resurrection of the body, and life everlasting. Amen. You may have noticed that we had a slight role reversal, I guess you will say, in our service this morning, as we heard our anthem from the chancel choir as our prelude this morning, and as our offertory special music, we will hear the Cheerful Chimers and Hymn Chimes choir will be playing for us at that time. So as we prepare for offering, we need to remember that we are blessed in so many ways. And of course, we have an opportunity now to give back from some of the ways in which we are blessed, to give some tokens, some gifts and offerings this day to help further the work of the church. And that is also a part of being the church. So as you are being the church, as our ushers come forward, be generous in your gifts this morning. use these tokens, these gifts that we bring forward at this time, to spread those wonderful words throughout this world. It's in your holy name we pray. Amen. You may be seated. Let us now calm our minds and our hearts as we pause for a moment of silence in preparation for prayer. Shall we pray? Our God, we give thanks for your wonderful words this day. You, O God, are the rock and the redeemer of our lives. You are the one constant in our ever-changing world. And so we constantly proclaim your glory and your honor. Our God, we ask now for your strength to help us stand strong in the face of struggles in life. Give us your love and your power to sustain us as we strive to be the church. And this day, our God, we know there are those whose needs are even greater than ours. There are those in the midst of illness. There are those who are battling depression and pain. There are those who are suffering with the loss of loved ones. There are those who face persecution and evil of all kinds in this world. We ask now that you comfort them, that your loving arms enfold them, so that some of their pain, some of their hurt may be taken away. We ask that you fortify them with your grace and with your love as they fight whatever battle may be before them. We claim your power in this, and we thank you, Almighty God. And we ask also that you give us the will, as part of being your church, to reach out to those in need as we continue every day our attempt to be your church. So be with us now as we repeat the prayer that Jesus taught us, saying, Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our debts, as we forgive our debtors. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, and the power, and the glory forever. Amen. Amen. Let us rise one last time, either in body or in spirit, to sing together our closing hymn, which is Open My Eyes That I May See, number 563 in your hymn. Shall we rise together and sing?
Silently now I wait for thee.
verse of In the Bleak Midwinter as the opening, because I come in here now the last few Sundays, and it's sort of bleak up here now after all those beautiful banners we had all the way at Thanksgiving and Advent and through the Christmas season. But we have other banners that will be appearing here in other seasons of the church. So it's not so bleak. The sun is shining today. Hopefully it will be a wonderful day for you today. And I know you're going to continue to share with us with the chili luncheon that we're going to have downstairs. Judy's no longer here to plead for you to come down. Yeah, she's already down there getting ready to dish it all up. As a part of my benediction this morning, I will also offer a prayer for our meal down there. So as soon as everything's ready down there, we can just go ahead and start getting our food if you need to do that. And don't forget, next Sunday is what kind of? Bonus Sunday, right, Bonus Sunday. Coming up next Sunday. I was so thrilled to hear Jacob had an opportunity to go wrestling today and next Sunday, and he had to choose which Sunday he was going to go wrestling and which one he'd be in church. And of course he chose
Bonus Sunday.
Bonus Sunday. So that's why he's not here this morning, but he'll be here. And I hope all of you are here as well. And I hope all of you will join us for the meal downstairs. As we eat that meal, and regardless of where you go, regardless of what the weather's going to be like outside, regardless of whether it's midwinter or midsummer, we need to remember that God is always with us. God, He's right here above us. God goes below us. God is behind us. God is before us. God stands right beside us. And most importantly of all, God is inside us as well. Let's have a quick prayer for our meal before we go. Shall we pray? Gracious God, we give you thanks for the opportunity to gather together to be the church. Whether we're eating a meal, whether we are worshiping you, whether we are reaching out to others in your name, we are called to be the church. Continue to be with us now as we move from this area downstairs. We ask that you bless the food of which we are about to partake. And we ask that your Spirit continue to enliven us as we share and fellowship with one another. It's in your holy name we pray. Amen. Go in peace, my friends.